Hey guys, it's Sagar, and in my 8th video of this year, we are going to compare the cameras on the Xiaomi 11T Pro with the ones on the iPhone 13 Pro. Now let me make this very clear. None of these phones are competing directly or even indirectly with each other, and there is a huge price gap between these two. In fact, you can buy 3 Xiaomi 11T Pros at the price of one iPhone 13 Pro. There are a number of reasons why there is such a huge gap between the prices of both these phones, but we are not going to get into those reasons right now. The point of this video is to show you guys how good the cameras on the mid-premium segment smartphones have got, and that you don't need to spend a ton of money on flagship smartphones just to get amazing looking images. We have over 150 image and video samples from both these phones to go through. So to keep this video from getting any longer than it already is, I will leave the camera specs of both these phones in this slide. You can pause the video and go through them if you want. Let us start with the daytime shots. Xiaomi 11T Pro gets a 108 megapixel camera, but by default it captures 12 megapixel pixel binned images. So here we are comparing 12 megapixel shots from both these phones, and we will look at the high resolution shots later on. Daytime shots on both these phones look really good. If you zoom in, you can see both of them are capturing a lot of details. Ones from the Xiaomi 11T Pro seem to have a bit of extra sharpness added to them, while ones from the iPhone 13 Pro are looking more natural. There is a difference in the way both of them capture colors. While both the images look very good, iPhone's images have natural warmth to them, which was actually there when I took these images, while the 11T Pro tried to get rid of the warm tones and cool down the shot a bit. As I said, both the shots are looking good. But if you want to know which of these is capturing the scenes as it looked in real life, then it's the iPhone 13 Pro. We also see more details in the shadows of the shots from the iPhone. Here are how the indoor daytime shots look from both. 11T Pro increased the ISO to add more light, which has introduced a lot of noise in its shot. And if I zoom in, we can see iPhone 13 Pro's image has slightly more details in it. 13 Pro is however adding a slight green hue in some of these indoor shots. Overall, I think both are doing good job with these indoor images. But if I had to choose one, I would pick the Xiaomi 11T Pro in these situations. Yes, iPhone 13 Pro's images have more details, but the 11T Pro is showing more accurate colors in these lighting conditions. In overcast or in diffuse lighting conditions, iPhone 13 Pro is back at capturing colors how they looked in real life. There is a bit more contrast in 11T Pro's images in these lighting conditions. If I zoom in, now I am seeing more noise in iPhone's shot and slightly sharper things in 11T Pro's shot. I must say, I am really impressed with the main camera on the Xiaomi 11T Pro. We knew that the 108 megapixel Samsung HF2 sensor is a really good one, but when coupled with a powerful ISP on the Snapdragon 888 processor, it seems to be doing even better. Colors seem a bit more saturated from the Xiaomi 11T Pro. If you like the saturated or vibrant look, you can use the vibrant photographic styles for your images on the iPhone 13 Pro. I like the colors in my images to look as they are in real life, so I prefer slightly contrasty looking colors in iPhone's images. But at the same time, I feel the extra bit of saturation makes Xiaomi 11T Pro's images look a bit more lively. Everyone perceives color in a different way, so which of these two images you like will depend on your visual taste and color preference. If you have liked this video so far, and if you are new to this channel, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. That way, you won't miss out on any of the amazing videos coming up on this channel. In this shot, we see the petals of the flowers in the 11T Pro's images to be a bit overexposed. This is a common issue with Xiaomi phones. They tend to overexpose certain parts of the image, and you will have to be aware of this. Just tap on the brightest part of the image or adjust the brightness slider manually to get the best exposure in your shots on the 11T Pro. I kept the HDR mode on auto on both these phones and trusted them to turn it on for shots like these. As you can see, both have done an excellent job with this shot. They managed to keep the bright sun from completely overexposing the sky, and at the same time brought back a lot of details from the shadows. This was a tricky shot. Most part of the image was in shadows with brighter areas at the end of the stairs. While both did well to capture a lot of details in the shadows, iPhone 13 Pro also managed to preserve a lot of information in the brighter parts of the image, whereas 11T Pro did not do that well with the brighter part of the image. Again, for this shot, iPhone seems to have captured more details both in the brighter and shadowed parts. That being said, I'm still impressed with the HDR capabilities of this 11T Pro. In some shots like this one, I like how it makes the colors look better, and in this one it brought back more details from the shadows than the iPhone 13 Pro and makes its image look so much better. Again, in this one as well, while the smart HDR on the iPhone 13 Pro decided to make this shot look like a silhouette, Xiaomi 11T Pro actually preserved the colors and brought back a lot of information from the shadows, which makes its HDR shot look so much better. It's been a while since I've seen the cameras on a mid-premium segment Android phone perform so well and go neck to neck with the cameras on an iPhone, so a huge thumbs up to Xiaomi for that. Coming to the close-up shots, both these phones get a big sensor, so the minimum focusing distance on both is slightly on the higher side. What this means is, on both these phones, you have to be a bit further away from your subject to set the focus on it. If you are too close, you will see a lot of fringing in your subject. With a bigger sensor, both also have a wider aperture, so the background in their close-up shots get a very nice natural looking bokeh. iPhone gets a much wider aperture, so its background gets a bit creamier looking bokeh. Other than that, subjects appear just as sharp in close-ups from both these phones. Another thing, focusing is very fast and accurate on the main cameras on both these phones, which is very important for taking close-up shots. Both phones get a macro mode, so you can get much more closer to your subject. Xiaomi 11T Pro gets a dedicated camera with a telephoto lens in front of it for this, while the iPhone 13 Pro uses its wide camera for taking macro shots. Here are how the macro shots look from both these phones. There are more details in 13 Pro's macro shots, but ones from the 11T Pro have a very unique look to them because it gets a tele-macro lens. Since it's a zoom lens, it will let you get much more closer to your subject, and the background is very nice and compressed. I'm all in for having a high resolution macro camera on smartphones because these shots look incredible if there are a lot of details in them. But given the compression of the background and overall look of the shot, I would pick the Xiaomi 11T Pro for taking my macro shots. So until now, the images that we saw from the 11T Pro were 12 megapixel ones. Now we are going to see how the 108 megapixel images from its main camera compare against the 12 megapixel ones from the iPhone 13 Pro. You won't see any big difference between these shots from so far. But if we zoom in 5 to 6 times, we see the 108 megapixel shots from the 11T Pro being much more detailed. That being said, considering the big difference between the megapixel count, I expected the 108 megapixel shots to have considerably more details than the 12 megapixel shots from the iPhone 13 Pro. This goes to show that high megapixel count doesn't always mean better images. The high resolution shots from the 11T Pro also don't have the best dynamic range. As you can see, it completely blew up the highlights in this shot. Yes, there are slightly more details in the 108 megapixel shots, but to see this extra bit of details, you will have to zoom in at least 5 to 6 times and compare these images side by side. These shots are also huge in terms of file size, so unless you are planning to zoom in on a particular part of your image later on, I would suggest you to stick to the default 12 megapixel shots on the Xiaomi 11T Pro. When you want to capture a wider scene, you can switch to the wide lens on both these phones. iPhone has a slightly wider field of view and a better resolution sensor behind this lens, which makes its wide images look a bit better. Both phones are good at matching the color temperature and white balance between these lenses. We expect this from iPhones because of its price point, but it is nice to see Xiaomi also working on this. Both the images have more noise and slightly less details as the light goes down, so it is best to use these wide cameras when there is plenty of ambient light around. Looking at these images side by side, I would say ones from the Xiaomi 11T Pro look just as good as the ones from the iPhone 13 Pro if you don't zoom in, which again is a big plus point for the 11T Pro. Now let's check out the portrait shots. Over 50% of the images which I take are portrait shots, so how good is the portrait mode on any phone matters a lot to me. Both these phones are extremely accurate at detecting the edges of the subject and separating it from the background. 11T Pro is not capturing accurate colors and the skin tones look a bit pale in its portrait shots, while colors and skin tones in the iPhone 13 Pro's portrait shots look very natural and pleasing. 11T Pro also tries to sharpen faces of the people in your shot, which doesn't look very natural. All this being said, portraits from the 11T Pro are not that bad when you look at them alone. Other than the slightly pale looking colors, if you look at them alone, they look pretty good. When your subject is backlit, or if there is a bright background behind your subject like in these portrait shots, iPhone 13 Pro again manages to take better looking portrait shots. 11T Pro even found it difficult to set the focus on the face in these portraits, but the fact that you can change the area of focus in its portraits even after taking the image saved these shots. In this one, we can even see iPhone preserving a lot of details in the brighter parts of the image behind the subject, while the Xiaomi 11T Pro completely overexposed that part of the image. For taking portraits of objects, surprisingly, Xiaomi 11T Pro is capturing better looking colors of the two, and the edge detection is slightly better from the iPhone 13 Pro. It is also faster at detecting the edges while taking these portrait shots. If the 11T Pro could capture this good colors for portraits of people as well, I would have picked it. But as I said, majority of my images are portrait shots and iPhone is better at it, so I'm going to go with the iPhone for taking my portrait shots. Let us now move on to the shots which are taken indoors, artificial and lower lighting conditions. If you guys saw my Xiaomi 11T's dedicated camera review, you must know that this is one of those rare mid-budget phones which does really well as the light goes down. It can take good looking images in artificial and lower light even though its main camera doesn't get OIS. Its images do look brighter at times, but since it increases the ISO, there is a lot of noise in them. 13 Pro gets OIS on the main camera and a wider aperture, so its images are more detailed and have less noise in them. 13 Pro also handles the exposure from the light much better, while the 11T Pro blows the brighter areas in the scene. That being said, its images still look better than most of the other phones in its price range. As we get to even lower light, you can switch to the night mode on both these phones, and that will make the images a lot better. As I zoom in, we see more details and slightly less noise in these night mode shots from the iPhone 13 Pro. With the night mode turned off, 11T Pro's images are brighter, but they also have much more noise in them. With it turned on, 13 Pro's images do look better, but you will have to be looking at these images side by side to know that. If you look at the night mode shots from the 11T Pro alone, I would say they look really good on their own. It is nice to see Xiaomi pulling off such good looking images without having OIS on the main camera. I am so impressed with the cameras on the 11T Pro that at this point I don't even care that iPhone's images are slightly better. With this kind of performance at this price point, just pick the 11T Pro over iPhone 13 Pro for most of your shots. The difference is so little that no one is even going to notice. Switching to the wide lens in these conditions, by itself it doesn't take good looking images from either of these phones. But with the night mode turned on, ones from the iPhone 13 Pro look much better. I don't know how many of you are planning to use your wide lens in these conditions, but if you do, then one on the iPhone 13 Pro takes much better images. That brings us to the front facing cameras. 11T Pro gets a 16 megapixel one and the iPhone 13 Pro gets a 12 megapixel one. Selfies from Xiaomi are brighter, but the skin tones are a bit pale in its shots. iPhone is capturing accurate colors, which means there is more contrast in its images, and it also has more details in these selfies. There is also no extra sharpening in its selfies, which I really appreciate. In the end, just look at these images and decide which one looks better to you and go with it. For the portrait shots, again we see slightly more contrast in the iPhone's images, but that is how my face looked in the mirror in these conditions. 11T Pro just tried to brighten up everything. Edge detection is almost as accurate from both. I've said it before in this video that I prefer natural looking true to life colors, and for that reason, my pick would be the iPhone 13 Pro for taking selfies. Here's a video from the front facing camera of the Xiaomi 11T Pro and the iPhone 13 Pro. You can see how both these phones are handling the overall colors of the scene, exposure, and stabilization when I'm walking around with them. For the videos, Xiaomi 11T Pro can shoot 8K videos with its main camera. These videos are not stabilized, but if you have steady pair of hands, these can look really good. Both of them can shoot 4K 60fps videos. iPhone gets both OIS and EIS, so its videos look much smoother. 11T Pro only uses electronic stabilization, so you can see a bit of jitters in its videos at times, but I would say it still looks good for the most part. iPhone's videos are of higher bitrate and they look more natural and smooth, so I would pick the iPhone for taking my videos any day. That being said, again, the 11T Pro is not too far behind. There is portrait mode video option on the 11T Pro, but there needs to be a human in the scene for it to work, and these videos are shot at 720p. iPhone 13 Pro gets cinematic shooting mode, which is nothing but portrait mode for videos, and this mode can detect objects, humans and animals as well. These videos are shot at 1080p resolution and they look really good. So as you guys saw, there are some situations where the iPhone 13 Pro's cameras perform better, but I don't think that the Xiaomi 11T Pro was too far behind. As a matter of fact, it actually performed better in some of the situations than the iPhone 13 Pro's cameras. So I don't think the difference between the cameras on these phones is as big as the difference between their prices. And as I said before, you don't need to spend a ton of money on a flagship smartphone just to get amazing images. This is what I feel about the cameras on both these phones. But you guys saw the images too, so what do you guys feel about them? Let me know in the comments. That is it for this video guys. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for a lot more quality tech videos like this. You can also check out some of the other videos from this channel. This has been Sagar and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.